The descendants of Holocaust survivors speak out, sharing their personal history. And I want to introduce you to third generation of Holocaust survivors, Žak Ozmo, whose home country was impacted by this war, and the civil war that came about 50 years later. Let's listen as he shares his grandparents' story.
My name is Žak Ozmo, and I'm a grandchild of Holocaust survivors. I was born in the former Yugoslavia, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in a city by the name of Zenica, which means the pupil of your eye, because it's in the very center of the country. So I am coming from a family that was a fairly prominent family at the time. My grandfather had 5 brothers and sisters. He was married to my grandmother. Her family lived in the capital, in Sarajevo. My grandfather and his brothers were businessmen. They owned real estate. So it was, they made a good life for themselves. I was told that they had a number of friends, of different faiths, who were seeing something is coming. But it's also difficult to know. There was no internet at the time. You cannot get news from different parts so quickly and easily. So you hear rumors. Yugoslavia was invaded by the Axis forces in April of 1941. Axis forces meaning being Nazi Germany and their allies at the time. And Jews, the Jewish population was placed in an extremely difficult situation where, for example, in the case of my family, their shops and properties were taken away from them. And I was recently told by a relative, something that I didn't know actually, that they were made, my grandfather and his brother were made to do physical labor, dig trenches in the street, which I suppose combined with the fact that everything was taken away from you, was meant to symbolize this intention to make you feel so helpless and to show everyone how helpless you are now. So my great uncle, who was married to my grandfather's sister, decided to procure passes both for my family and for his own family, because Jewish people at the time already were not able to move freely. So having these passes would enable them to go to a different part of the country, which ultimately, they went to a part of the country city called Mostar. It's a bridge city that was occupied by Italian forces at the time. It's difficult to talk about how humane they were because the bar was so very low, but it was much more likely that you would survive if you found yourself in Italian-occupied area, which in the end saved them all. Very tragically, my great uncle he had the choice of first bringing the passes to my family in Zenica and then bringing the passes to his own family they were in Sarajevo, living in Sarajevo. He stopped by our hometown and he lost the time, and by the time he got to Sarajevo, his own family they were all taken to the concentration camp, and they all perished. So he was the only surviving member of his family, and this included several siblings, his parents, members of extended family. They were all killed. My grandmother's family, only her sister survived, and everybody else was killed. After the camp was liberated by the resistance, by the partisans in 1943, they actually joined the resistance, where they stayed until the end of the Second World War. One of the reasons why my grandparents were for me always a source of such inspiration. How do you go through all of that? and then still find strength within yourself to live a good life, to achieve great things in this life, to be happy, to get on with it. After all of that, I mean, I think that is, in terms as far as fighting goes, that is very much related to one's ability to pick up arms and have armed resistance in that situation. So I see it as this continuous process.
Jacques, thank you so much for coming on and sharing stories. So I want to ask you, what has been the impact the war has left on your home country?
The war, you mean both wars?
Mm-hmm,
the
yes.
Second World War and then the next war. Well, on both occasions there was a change of the regime. The previous regime was replaced by something else. New things were built, some better, some worse. I would say that a lot of times changes are superficial, but people stay what they are. Because we are, regardless of where or when we are driven by similar things. Similar things are important. We strive towards similar things. We get ourselves into very similar types of trouble.
Yeah.
As individuals and society.
Got it. I want to discuss more with you as well, too. So when we return, we're going to be talking about the next generation of the Holocaust survivors.